All right, so here we are. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's been a journey. We documented a lot of Kano, and
Yeah.
it's just kind of starting off the bat. Tell everyone where it all started for you.
Yeah. Well, first I'll say thank you. Kano is an amazing animal now, pet, family member. So
Yeah,
thank you for that. How it started, I'll start how I got Kano,
yeah,
right? Because it's pretty interesting because he was from a coworker his dogs had puppies, and he was like, "Hey man, I really don't believe in selling animals." And he's like, as long as he's gonna go to a good home, like I think I want you to have him. And I was like, "How old is he?" He's like, "Oh, he's only 4 weeks old."
that's pretty young.
That's a little really, really young. So
Yeah,
that started the journey with him, took him home. It was just my wife and I at the time. I think she was my girlfriend at the time, not wife yet.
yeah,
So, took him in. He's only 3 years old now. His
Right.
first puppy years, he was a pretty good dog. Like he knew the basic commands, right? But as time went on, like I probably did a little neglection of training on him. He started getting a little aggressive towards other dogs, but before he wasn't. I think I talked to you about that before.
Call that unintentional training.
Unintentional training.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like took him to the dog parks as much as I did as a puppy because he was small, right? He was at the time 10 pounds. Now he's 90 to 100 pound
Yeah,
dog. But then something happened. I think I got a new job. Also, I think I was planning the wedding where I think the neglection happened a little bit. I wasn't taking him out as much. He was more just staying at home.
life got busy.
Yeah, life got busy. This was a big factor too. We lived in an apartment, and it was one of those apartments that didn't have like a backyard. We're on the 4th floor. The only way to get down is through an elevator. So there's times I was like, I don't want to go outside right now. It's a lot of work, right?
Yeah,
So like, that's probably where I went wrong.
I've seen dogs that like don't care,
Yeah.
but whenever I do see a dog that's like struggling with elevators, it's always really bad.
Really?
Yeah,
So be honest, it was just me.
right.
And I was like,
Yeah.
Kano was actually totally fine in the elevators. Like he was able to sit and just stay. But it was just the extra effort for me to get down there was a lot. And then what happened? My wife got pregnant, right? So then I was like, okay, something has to change with Kano because at this point, when I did do these walks, he would get a little bully, get a little aggressive. Even with some people, he'd be a little jumpy, and it happened so fast. Like he went from being like an okay dog to like borderline, okay, you're almost to that a little extreme. And that's when I contacted you guys.
Takes a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And yeah, my first interaction with Kano was an eval for daycare.
Yeah.
I think you were looking for a way to burn him out.
Yeah.
And
That was it. I took him to daycare, and
Yeah.
you guys also told me, you're like, I think.
we're like, yeah.
Yeah.
So we had our eval. At the time we weren't very big. We only had like 5 or 6 staff. And so I distinctly remember one of my employees coming in and being like, you need to work with this dog. I don't know what's going on with it. I was like, now she had done more boarding and daycare than I've worked more exclusively with just training.
Yeah.
So I knew how to read dogs better, but I didn't necessarily know, especially like in a heightened setting.
Yeah.
And so I reduced the environment and brought Floki in, and we were working with him just fine. And that's when I discovered his hair trigger. So we were working with him, and all of a sudden he just latched onto Floki. And when we do these evals, especially when there's a lot of uncertainty involved, we're using slip leads and stuff, so we're able to pull him off quick. But just in a couple of seconds, he had punctured Floki.
Yeah.
And it was like, holy cow, we didn't even know.
I'm so sorry about that.
No, it's totally fine. Like Floki was fine. It was a nick really in the grand scheme of things, but we didn't notice for like a week. He didn't make a sound. Floki didn't do anything, and we checked him over, but all he did was kind of like mount.
Yeah.
And it was displaying dominance, and that went from like, I mean, he was like sniffing, and I thought, okay, check this out. And it went from ear, and then everything. Usually there's a lot of time. I mean, it feels like a lot of time for me in between like the freeze and the reaction, but this was like all one fluid motion. So there was like a lot of intention and just, I think, a lot of uncertainty on his end on being really socially awkward.
Yeah.
And so, again, lack of exposure. So
Right.
I was like, okay, well, there we go. And now we know.
Yep.
And the employees were like, this dog will jump on you nonstop.
Yeah.
Like, he does not know how to, he'll try to bite you, he'll scratch at you, he freaks out, whatever. So I was like, okay. And I know we kind of struggled. Like, we played please train your dog tag for like a year.
Yeah,
There's a lot of,
we
and again, you had a lot of things in your life. And I think I even told you, I was like, don't do it till you're ready.
Yeah.
Like, don't, I'm not, pay thousands of dollars to turn around and then not put in the energy and time. It's not just me waving a wand and making it all better. It's literally like intentional time you're going to have to carve out of your life. And I always told, I was prepared to tell you, like, show me your phone, like, what's your screen time at? Because if your screen time's anything more than an hour, I was going to be like, you got time.
You got time. Man.
So I tell a lot of people that. But when you called, it was so funny. When you were finally ready, like, I think I'm ready. And I think my question was, are you getting married or having a kid?
You did.
Yeah.
I think that was your first thing you said to me. You're like, are you having a kid or getting married?
Yeah.
And I was like, ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
You got.
Yeah, because people don't just suddenly change without something changing them or some kind of external environment. And so, yeah, I knew right away. I was like, oh, well, that's a good reason to need to train your dog.
Right.
And we talked about time and what it was going to take. And I remember you were kind of one of the first real cases where I was like, I want to do this on social media, kind of put myself out there, be a little bit more transparent. We have a great series on Instagram where we do just that. We kind of go through the whole deal. There's a lot of stuff I don't have up, kind of saving it for like a Patreon or like sort of a membership thing where people can see. You've seen most of it. Yeah, it's still cool stuff. We talk about some of the failures, and I'm trying things too. When you come in for an eval, I'm not like, I know exactly what's going on. I have a very good idea.
Oh yeah.
But until I present, say, a dog or a person, I don't know what that's going to do, even if you tell me, because at the end of the day, you're not a professional.
No.
And you don't know what your dog actually is. I tell people time and time again, just come in, let me see. We'll be safe about it, but I don't know. I've had people say my dog's crazy and it'd be nothing, and then the opposite. So it just, and that almost feels more, I don't mind the people over explaining their dog's reactivity. I can give them good news.
Yeah.
But if I have an arrogant person who's like, my dog's great, and they're bad, that's a hard uphill climb that any trainer knows they have to deal with. It's
like, listen to the
you
professional.
You knew.
Professional. Like, whatever you say.
You knew. Kano was a case. He did some level 4 bites, and that's pretty intense in terms of reactivity. He does not bluff. So there's a big difference between reactivity and aggression. And he didn't have a lot of structure around any real training. He had like, Petco, PetSmart kind of training, and basic stuff, if that. And I went to ground zero with him. When you brought him that first day, you dropped him off, and it was, I jumped right on the gun.
Yeah. And
he was like full blown. I was training him on muzzle mainly because like he would go like just Pennywise on me.
Crazy,
yeah.
Something just clicks and he's like, almost
like
a different dog.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so he didn't, what made him kind of tricky and interesting for me is he didn't really show much signs. Like his ears, he's kind of got like loose ears, so like they don't perk as well, and his tail stayed limp, and like there were things he didn't square off to a person or a dog. He would just kind of like la 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 and then go. And so he didn't have those precursors to pick up on. So I learned what they were. They were different. It was kind of interesting.
Well, you taught me those too, because those are things I never really look at, right?
Right.
You're like, oh, that's him shaking it off. And like,
yeah.
I'm like, I thought it was just him shaking just because. And I was like, oh,
stuff.
Yeah.
Every movement means something to a dog.
For sure.
So anyway, I come around the corner and he dropped, I think he had something, I think he was doing something with his mouth, and he looked up at me. I was like, oh boy. Like, he looked at me like unsure. I was like, I was just looking down at my phone, and I looked over and I was like, holy crap, because I had the camera going,
yeah,
and I was filming it, so I put it down, And I went down because I was like, I'm not sure, like, I'm not trying to challenge you.
Yeah.
And so I was turning my head away, like, what is this? And he stress licked, and I called his name, and he snapped out of it. But I was like, boy, I don't know if he was going to charge me or what. So that was interesting.
Yeah.
He didn't really, looking back at the video, he didn't really, but the energy was so intense.
Yeah.
And because of the random unknown spurts of like not normal dog movements, that it was just a interesting for me to deal with. So went from that to, again, I talked about it in my videos, but just I'm not working on anything but a relationship.
Right.
Let's build something.
You got to build trust first.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Like a lot of people just go right into, okay, heel and whatever, and that's great too, but relationship first. And I don't think that's talked about enough in training.
That's where I went wrong too, right? I'm like right away, I'm like, all right, let's learn to sit, right?
And you're flooding, and you're flooding the dog with like, okay, you know how to sit, now we can go on a walk. Yeah. No, those are two different, completely different things with different expectations in training and practice. So yeah, it didn't surprise me that there was a lot of things that were imbalanced with him. But yeah, so walk with me after he walk through what happened after you saw him that day and you took him home. What happened?
It was interesting because right away, I mean, we took him straight back home, right? And I think it was like a month, right? And he slept a lot, right? He's probably like, oh, okay, I'm home now. I'm just gonna relax. But he was a totally different dog that first day back, right? Yeah. We went for a walk, and he didn't seem too excited, but he was excited. Right, the first thing I noticed, he's walking next to my leg, right? I'm like, oh, this is sweet. We were using the pinch collar for a while, right?
Yep.
Or the prong collar.
Herb Springer.
Herb Springer, yeah. But I switched him to the slip lead, and I was like, all right, and like, you're walking now. And then it's funny because we only maybe walked 10, 15 minutes, and he's like, all right, I'm done. Let's go home, right? Other than that, like, I think I picked him up around Thanksgiving, and I was like nervous. I was like, hey, I had to bring him to my family's house because we rented a beach house. So I'm like kind of nervous how he'd be with that. And I didn't have to worry about him at all. Actually, everyone got, it was almost like showing him off a little bit.
You're proud.
I was proud of him, actually. Like, he wasn't overstimulated. He was calm. I don't think he didn't jump on anyone, right? He was totally calm and collected. He stayed by my side a lot, which was awesome, right? Yeah. I think it was just building that trust. I think me coming in during the training some of this time was nice too, because he got to show me what to do, how to act on people around. So totally different dog. That was the eye opener for me, bringing him to like my family. And there was maybe like 20 people there.
Yeah.
And he was totally calm. But back then, he would probably run to everyone, try to bump into them, jump on this person, because there was kids there too, and they were like, oh, Kano, hi. Try to hype him up, and he stayed calm then. And that was like a week after training.
Right. Yeah. And that's where, as I knew, we had talked about, like, especially you having a kid, I was like, I need to put a lot. I can't tell you how many times I went to Shoot Park and just walked him around kids.
Yeah.
But I didn't start there. I didn't, and people go, well, how do I train? And you just gotta get really creative with what your dog needs. Mm-hmm. That way, when you're operating under this whatever random, Thanksgiving, you're already practiced. You already know what to do, and I guarantee you, there was a lot of like checking in with you. Yeah. What do you want me to do? And if you were calm and confident, which I told you what to do, there was no uncertainty to be had. There was no like, maybe I should this now. Mm-hmm. So there's none of this guesswork, and all that unintentional training becomes intentional progress, right? So really put a lot of emphasis on that. That's good. I know that there was a lot of worry with all that stuff. And
a big thing with that you taught me were like burnout before you do those things. So I think before we went, like literally before we checked into the house, I went on a run with him. I played some fetch at the beach for maybe like 30, 40 minutes. And then we went there, and then, because he has all that, he has got built up energy, he's just charging up, ready to go right away. So the burnouts definitely helped.
Yeah, and it's a need like water and food.
Yeah.
You know, I tell people all the time, how much you need depends on the breed and the dog and whatever. If it's a working line or if it's like a show dog. Um, being aware of that, even just that is so helpful. That's why we're, you know, unveiling like an agility course thing, because you might have a reactive dog, and where do you start? How do you burn your dog out knowing that there isn't going to be a dog running around the corner?
Exactly, yeah.
And that's what keeps people indoors, and all that restriction really prevents people from actually getting out there and having that exposure.
100%.
So in the beginning, you do have to pay a lot of like, you know, controlled environment.
Yeah.
You have to find that it's a lot of effort in the beginning. But once you have that foot in the door, you can start building off that, working at home. I tell people all the time, walk your dog on slip lead in your house. No one told you you can't start. I mean, you want to talk about an environment. I can't tell you when people go, my dog's great at home. Train there.
Train there.
Yeah. And then add, you know, distractions and you know,
that was 100% me.
yeah, environmental stimulus, you know, like add those things into it so that when you're done or when you're ready for, you know, backyard, front yard, whatever, you're already practiced. Now, what people don't realize is sometimes if a dog's got a lot of like high octane energy, you'll walk outside and it won't be as good.
Right.
You know, you're like, what happened? It's like, well, you're in a different environment now.
Yeah.
That matters to a dog,
Really
especially
does.
because of their nose.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much of their brain is all about the nose, and so when you add all these different smells, the again, the senses overload. You know, it's they're overstimulated, and then, you know, it becomes a whole different thing. So yeah, that's what I try to tell people is it's baby steps.
Right. For sure.
Don't expect people rush this world. My biggest job is to slow you down,
right,
and your expectations.
You know, people probably come into like, all right, I'm gonna have him off leash now everywhere I go, right? And I'm like, no,
yeah,
baby steps.
Takes time. Takes a long time.
Oh yeah.
And that's sort of it's okay for it to take time. Yeah. It's, you know, social media and technology, they've done so much for us to go faster. It's not teaching us as people to go slower, which is kind of like too much affection for your dog. It's going down a road we don't really want us to go down. At the end of it, you even said like he's lost weight. Like I hadn't paid attention to that. I mean, most of my dogs do if I have them for that long, but in his case, like he was just kind of a thick boy, not like overweight, and then he got like lean. You know,
for sure that final day I picked him up, I was like, hey, no, you're buff. You know, you're jacked right now.
Work him out a lot. And I was doing something with him. He was starting to get it. I was going to film like a little mini series of like me and him working out together. Oh, yeah, so like I was teaching him how to like do push-ups.
Yeah.
But I was like, that's taking away from like the real training. He was just going to do like up downs while I did push-ups, you know?
But still, that's
you know, play some Rocky music in the background.
That would be sweet.
I even, some of my old employees might remember this. I was talking about getting a dry ice machine and having him like come out like Jordan, you know, the steam.
The steam come out. Probably when I show up to pick him up. You're
yeah. So I had a lot of fun ideas with where I could go with it, but, he was such a pleasure to work with. You know, the really reactive and forward dogs, I like working with them mostly because they're so willing to give.
Yeah.
They take a lot too. I mean, they're forward. They have a forward type mentality. Yeah. So if you give them a direction, they just go, you know, and it's hard to carve that out sometimes, but once it's carved out, you're like, look at this great dog, you know? What I'd like to do is just kind of gauge sort of where you're at now in terms of how you're feeling with Kano, what you'd like to get out of him, and sort of what's next.
Yeah. I mean, so baby's here now.
Yeah. So, congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. She's actually just turned 6 months. So
how do you do with her?
Very cautious with her. He knows that she's a baby. That's just like nice, right? So he knows like I got to be gentle with her. And yeah, like he just treats her like she's part of the pack, right?
Yeah.
Like we go on walks with. That was a big thing when she was first born. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go on walks with Kano, with her, with the wifey, right?
That's so important.
Yeah, and it was like family bonding time too, right? Which was nice, and he was great. That was another eye opener for me. Because I mean, you told me this, like he's gonna lose training, right? It's just bound to happen. But
You don't have the time like I do.
I know,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
But I would say he still is pretty obedient,
Yep.
almost the same things from the day I got him, right? Just
Yeah.
sometimes he tries to test his boundaries, right? But
That's what you gotta hold strong like Red Rover.
exactly. I was like, I remember everything he told me, like, right?
And it's not as instinctive or as intuitive with you to just jump in and be like, oh, I know because, yeah, so there's a delay, and that delay can cause issues. But if at the very least you can remember and try to, okay, now this is becoming an issue against, say, counter surfing. It's like I can go back and practice, and you can always go back and work on it. And then, people forget that, it's the brain. It's not a machine that you can just kind of point and shoot. So that's the big part of it.
And then, and he's really good with, like, he knows not to go into the baby room or our room. Like, he's actually like, he'll wait for us, like in the mornings, he'll just stay out by the door. I'm like, are you guys coming out yet? And I'm like, I didn't even tell you to do that. You just kind of,
yeah, it's structure. Yeah. So it's kind of like, once they kind of get, especially a dog like him, once they understand sort of that there is boundaries, they're more aware of just boundaries at large, right? We've taught you that, we've taught Kano that there are times when you should slow down and be more self-aware, because that's what was happening before. There was no self-awareness. It was this chaos and nonsense, and a 5-year-old, I call it Bam Bam energy, it's just, yeah. And so he had that. And now that we trained most of that out of him, you're getting real Kano. You're getting like that, oh, what, this is my valuable pack. I don't have to take anymore. I trust that it'll be given to me. And with that respect, you're seeing it in other aspects. And this is where the real bonding and healing of a dog comes into play, and not just cheap tricks and in corrections. He's right. Yeah. Yeah. That's nice, but that helps me teach and condition those other things. Like, oh, you see this crazy energy? This is what I want you to do in that moment. He goes, oh, okay. And so now when he sees crazy energy, he knows what to do, right? Because he's had multiple exposures, not just a dog with a person running. It's 6 dogs looping him in circles, which I also filmed, And so there's these moments when I would over ask slowly, right? Controlled conditioning, where I would build up to it way beyond anything you could ever ask of him. So that way when he comes to you, it's like, he's like, that's easy. I do it in my sleep.
Exactly. And then right now, like, he's so comfortable with people. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about him jumping on anyone, especially with the biggest one. My concern was a baby. Like, how is he going to act with a baby? Is he gonna treat it like an adult, right?
Right.
And like, what I want out of him more now is just like, it's just baby steps, right? It's just like probably more interactions with dog, which is on me now, right?
Yeah. Well, we took him to the park, and you saw, rolling on his back.
Yep. Yeah. And I just need to do that more.
Yes, practice.
Yeah, just practice, because I can't do it every day with him, obviously,
Right.
with work and baby, right? So like, I get 2 to 3 times a day or a week where I can do like focus on him, take him on walks, and try to get that dog exposure.
Yeah, and that's all
I
you.
feel like nervous to take him to the dog park again, because like, I don't know, maybe it's just anxiety.
It's definitely you.
I'm sure he'll be fine.
Yeah, it's definitely you. And you walked him at what park was that? The Thousand Island, the huge 1,000-acre dog park. You walked him all the way back, and there were dogs, and he listened to you. So with me there, so it's sometimes you got to get out of your own head, and my job is to help you. I know, but at some point you didn't realize, but I was about 20 feet behind you. And you looked around and you're like, oh, I'm doing this. I'm like, there you are.
Yeah.
It's like kid first time on a tricycle, bye.
Or the swimming, just throw the kid in the pool.
Yeah. Not quite like that, but so there were times when I was right there, and when I didn't need to be, and I would take over when I knew, like, okay, this is like a narrow corridor. It could get swirly if things, and you have to act quicker than your reaction. But that's the thing. You were seeing me problem solve in real time. It wasn't just like, I've got your dog and watch me. I wasn't trying to show off. I was showing you how to do it, like mirror me, and the confidence that I exuded. And Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Sure. I was like, okay, that's what I gotta
Yeah.
do.
You believe me, that's more valuable than you realize. And not just for Kano's sake, but like your sake. To say, oh, it is possible and this is where I need to be and how do I get there? Well, I didn't day one take him to that place. You know what I mean? So you'll get there. It's possible. Yeah. Yeah, I'm really glad that you finally gave me an opportunity. It took time. It took like a year.
It's taking so much stress from me, right? Because like
And
I'm
I knew it would.
focusing on wife, baby now, right?
Could you imagine adding Kano how he was to your life now?
It. I hate to say it, like I don't know if I'd probably be
You
like
probably would have gotten rid of
I
him.
probably had to get rid of him,
Yeah.
find a new home. To be honest,
Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't have had the energy.
yeah.
Yeah, and I knew that. So I was like, there's only so much that I can get out of you coming out of this training.
That's what I wanted, right? I didn't want to get rid of him. He's part of the
Yeah.
family, right? And I was like, all I got to do is like I got to put him in training.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I knew
Yeah.
what it meant if I failed.
Right.
And I took it serious. And a lot of it for me was just being aware. Not only was it for the baby and for you, I mean that's your boy. You got him when you weren't even married. And so to abandon him because your life went elsewhere, that happens so often.
I know.
Yeah.
I hear the horror stories, and
No.
I'm like, I don't want to be that dog parent.
Yeah.
Right?
And there were things that you said that I look for in a client where I'm like, okay, they want this. I mean, everyone wants it, but it's there's a tone, there's an intensity, there's intent, and it's not about money. I'll take someone who's desperate and will do anything if they only have $1,000, a couple $100. I'll be like, I'll do whatever I can for you and as much time as I can, with being fair. I do work for a living.
We need more trainers like that.
We do, and I try putting it out there that I don't judge. I'm very reasonable with my requests. I'm not trying to, I'm a balanced trainer. I have used e-collars. I've used positive reinforcement training. I do it all, and it's because you can't just one size fits all.
Well, so different.
Exactly. And every environment's different, every expectation. And so, yeah, I try to do what I can to make it as pain-free as possible for you. And a lot of people go, be without my dog for that long? Are you out of your mind? And I go, but that's exactly what you need, and it's so important. It'll be a recurring theme on this series is letting go of needing your dog. There's nothing wrong. I always tell people, I think love should be a choice, not something that magically happens because of a fairy godmother. There's so much more. There's willingness. There's when you choose to be with someone, that's intentional effort, as opposed to, I don't know, I just fell in love with her one day, or him, or the dog, or whatever. Great. That means it can magically go away too. If you don't understand why to begin with, you'll never understand why you're there later. And so that's what I try to point out to people is this love thing. It's valuable. It's important. I don't think you shouldn't love your dog, but know when to, know when not to. That's so important.
We sure appreciated when he was gone gone for a long, few months, right? And
gave you so much time.
Gave us so much time. For me, I was like, man, I really miss Kano now, right? And my wife, she left all Kano to me, right? She's like, "It's your dog," everything. And maybe first week, she's like, kind of miss the guy.
Yeah. Right? There's an energy about it when he's gone. And in some ways, depending on how long Kano's gone, it's like you're getting a taste of what it'd be like to not have him anymore if you fail. Right. And I think it makes it more real for people.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hopefully in the better, right?
No, of course. Yeah. No, there's always that. But then there's always a case of I come back after the board training and go, this is what you need now. And they go, holy crap, I don't know. And I go, okay, but know that what you just felt these past weeks or months is what's going to be like forever. And there's no guarantee this dog will be okay. I mean, I try to reach out to shelters, but I'm still relatively new, and those are
Special cases.
no, the shelters are so full.
Yeah.
There's so many people, and they're inundated constantly in ways that I can't keep up with. And I try to reach out to foster families, but again, COVID really did a number on dogs in this country, and yeah, I'm only one person, but hopefully with all this podcast stuff and everything, that I can sort of make a name for myself and build that trust within the community, so that people can come to me and, hey man, the shelter dog, if it can get adopted, we can start moving dogs faster. You know, I'd really like to start doing that stuff and offer. I've done consulting in the past. I've worked with, you know, volunteer work, but that's different than working with the actual shelter dogs. And
That would feel really good on your part because you're like, okay, I helped that dog get out of a shelter and find a home by just like what, a few weeks of training, right?
yeah, no,
That'd be the biggest reward.
and prevention. If I could say this dog is this and it needs this kind of owner, yeah, that pack placement I offer, but no one ever takes me up on it because they want the look. It's like they buy the car because of the color, not because of what it could do for you. Yeah, same thing with dogs. They buy it because it's pretty. Yeah, well, it's a working line, and you have an apartment. It's a different world. So
I was like, my wife, you got a 90-pound dog and we live on the fourth floor of an apartment with an elevator.
yeah.
Access. I was like, yep.
Well, hey, it's been an absolute pleasure. I still miss Kano. It's one of those dogs where I bet, yeah, I don't mind him coming in every now and then. So yeah, I couldn't ask for a more better dog and a better case. It's what I thrive in. I mean, the basic obedience stuff, that's good too, but the broken cases, I come from a broken background myself, so I really empathize with these dogs and the people behind it. You know, the dogs will mirror your energy, so and your past.
I've learned that from him.
Yeah,
for sure. Energy for sure.
so I can see all of it. And then I just go, okay, I know how to untangle this, but it's going to take me some time. And I don't know, it's busy work, gives me something to do, and it's very rewarding. So, okay, well, I think that's it. And thanks for coming by.